Our next type of geometry is called NURBS. NURBS work differently than polygons. They can be found under curves and surfaces, or you can go into create NURBS primitives. The best way to explain NURBS is by the use of a plane. So I'll select plane. If I go into my inputs, I can see the width, the length, the patches in U, and the patches in V. I'll make this slightly bigger. Patches is similar to what the faces would be on polygons. They delineate the actual surface. They also have the U coordinate and the V coordinate. All NURBS are planes, and they're all made out of these patches. We can access the components of NURBS by right-clicking and hold, and you would see the isoparms, hold, surface point, surface patch, and the control vertex. The isoparms will give you access to any of the lines contained within the patch. Control vertex allows you to select the particular vertex in a patch surface. If we move this up or down, we can see that it keeps the surface very smooth, and unlike polygons, are not attached to the actual surface. Surface point, it actually selects the intersection between two points, the U and the V, within the actual patch. These ones, just like the isoparms, cannot really be moved manually by any of the tools. Lastly, we have the hole, and the holes would be the actual connectors for the surface. When we're moving the holes, we are indeed moving the control vertices attached to the surface. But instead of moving them manually, one at a time, using the holes will allow you to move the controls, the surface points, multiple ones at one time. NURBS are great to create smooth surfaces with low geometry. For this next example, we're going to create a NURBS sphere, a NURBS torus, and a NURBS cylinder. Unlike the polygons, the cylinder by default is hollow and it has no lids. We can always go into the inputs and play with the start sweep back and forth. Notice that NURBS are made by patches wrap around, similar to what you would do with a piece of paper. Same thing we can find here in the torus. Notice this particular line being slightly thicker than the other one. This is because that's the point where the patches meet. If I were to bring down these numbers, you would see the single patch that made that entire NURBS surface. We can observe the same thing here with the NURBS sphere. When we bring it down to its most basic shape, it is contained of one single patch. Curves are also related to NURBS, and they can be extremely useful when trying to create multiple objects. For this example, I'm going to tap with my spacebar to get access to my multiple views. Tap with my spacebar on the side view, go to Create, Curves Tools, and you here will find the CV and the EP curves. I will start with the CV curves. For this particular example, I will create this S shape, hit enter once I'm done. If I look at this on my perspective view, it has created a nice open shape. I can now go into my surfaces and create a revolve. Now you can still see how I have my thicker line here, but this object has revolved on itself. If I press number 4, I still can get access to my original curve and manipulate it. I'll move it a little bit to the side, and suddenly we can actually end up with a nice custom object similar to a vase. You would see that at the bottom this will be open, and so at the top. There are many ways in which we can fix this issue. I will select my isoparm, the one in the actual bottom of that barrel, and I will go into surfaces and planar. This will give me a lid that closes down my shape. Then I can repeat the same exact steps for the bottom area. Select my isoparm, go into surfaces, and go into planar. Now notice that this one is actually blacked out. This is because there's one side of this geometry that is the exterior, while the other one gets to be the interior of it. To fix this, you can go into curves and reverse direction. Now you would see how my vase is completed, and I can always go back into my CV curve that I originally created to mess around with my geometry. Notice how my extra objects do keep shape. The great thing about CV curves and EP curves is that they do not render, so this can help you in creating any objects that you want. For this next example, we're going to create a tube using an EP curve. So the first thing I want to do is go into my views here. I'm going to go into my side view, and I will create an EP curve. So I can select this icon, or I can go into create curve tools, EP curve. At this moment I can select, starting maybe from the origin, just multiple points, and let's say that's my actual shape. Once I'm done, I can just press enter, and if I go into my perspective view, I would see how that shape actually looks. My next step is going to be to create a NURBS circle, which is a 2D line, if you will, here on my 3D program. I can also go into create, NURBS, primitives, and circle. Now, by making sure that my circle is literally in the middle of where I started my curve, I can grab my move tool, shift select my curve, and now go into surfaces and extrude. In inputs, I can go into fix path and select on, and now I have a tube that actually follows the path I created. If I were to select my NURBS circle and select my scale tool, I can scale that up just like so, or I can also scale that down. So that there is just one example on how to use curves.